Jasodanandana Brajajanaranjana Jasodanandana Brajajanaranjana Jamanatira Vena Jadi Jamanatira Vena Jadi Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Adi Radha Madhava Punjabi Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Adi Madhava Punjabi Gopi Jana Balabha Girivardhari Balabha Gopi Jana Balabha Girivardhari Jasodanandana Brajajanaranjana Jasodanandana Brajajanaranjana Jamanatira Vanatadi Tira Jamanatira Vanatadi Tira Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hadi Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hadi Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hadi Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Jayom Vishnupad Paramahansa Harivajagacharya Astatarasatasi Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Gaur Premanandi. She couldn't find it, whatever it was. Your mask.
But I got my shot.
Me too. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Probably everybody here, well, I'm not sure. Most of you here will know the story of Dhruva Maharaj. Your family knows. How about you two? Dhruva? Any idea? No idea. Dhruva. Okay. We're talking about Dhruva, who, it's Canto 4, Srimad Bhagavatam, and the time is the very, very, very beginning of creation, and at least it's the beginning of a day of Brahma. Let's just say, keeping it simple, beginning of creation. And in third canto, there was a really amazing description of the unfolding of creation, what Vishnu does to bring about the elements and the plan, the universal form, kind of like the blueprint for a universe. And Lord Brahma is born directly from the body of Garbhodakshay Vishnu. He undergoes tapasya. He realizes his duty to build the universe. He takes the ingredients and builds the universe. There's a description, more detailed than just that little summary. And after the universe is built, he has to fill it up. Living entities that were dormant during the cosmic annihilation now have to come out. So he has a plan for doing that. His plan, he has called Prajapatis. Praja means offspring. Pati means father, the father of mankind. Prajapatis. So the first of them is Manu number 1 so Swayambhuva Manu, according to the Vedic picture, every day of Brahma, there's 14 Manus. And each day of Brahma has 1,000 of the cycle of the 4 yugas. Each day of Brahma has 1,000 yuga cycles. And there's 14, so 14 in each day, 14 goes into 1,000. It's 71 and a fraction. So, Manu number 1 appears from the body of Brahma. His name is Swayambhuva Manu. And Swayambhuva Manu, at the same time he appears from Brahma's body, his wife, Shatarupa, appears, and they come before Brahma. Yes, sir. Our dear father, do you have some service for us? Yes. Gives 2 services. Create offspring that will help fill up the universe, and give laws for the human species of life, laws of mankind, Manu Samhita. Manu Samhita. So they proceed to fulfill the order of their father, Lord Brahma, and from their combination, there are 2 sons and 3 daughters. And in Canto 3, we hear a great, 7-8 chapters about the first daughter, the eldest daughter named Devahuti. Devahuti marries a sage named Kardama Muni. Long story. One of their children is Lord Kapila Dev. Lord Kapila Dev gives teachings on Sankhya philosophy that lead to meditation, that lead to devotional service. So that's where Canto 3 ends. And Canto 4, the section that we're reading, chapter 8 through 12, one of the sons of Swayambhuva Manu and Shatarupa becomes the king of the whole earth planet. His name is Uttanapada. Uttanapada has 2 queens. One of those queens becomes the mother of Dhruva. Dhruva's a little boy. What we heard now I'm giving you a summary of chapter 8, the beginning of the story of Dhruva. He had a younger stepbrother. Stepbrother means there were 2 queens, and the other queen had a son. His name was Uttama, a little younger. So they're like brothers, but stepbrothers. And by Vedic law, the laws of Manu, the eldest son will become the next king. So Dhruva was to become the next king, but his stepmother was envious. She wanted her son to be king. So even when they were little, just like 5, 6 years old, she insulted him really badly, without the detail because of time. We're going to have to cover the next chapter. So badly, he left the palace. Little boy went to his mother. She heard everything. She advised him, you have this mindset, I know you. You not just want your father's kingdom, you want better than your father's kingdom. A little like, chivalrous, spirited little boy. Kshatriya. So if you want something like this, you're going to have to go to Vishnu. And he wants to know how to find Vishnu to get what he wants. Totally material. He wants a kingdom that's better than his father's. So she said, I don't know. I just know that sages, they go to the forest and somehow they find Vishnu. So he considers her recommendation. He trusts her. That there's lots of details that went on during chapter 7. Lots of good lessons. But so he goes to the forest. He doesn't find Vishnu. He finds trees and mosquitoes and bugs and birds and beasts and things. He doesn't find Vishnu. But Narada Muni hears, the son of the king has gone to the forest. So he goes and finds Dhruva. He tries to encourage Dhruva to go back to the palace. Give up this get-back mentality. You won't find Vishnu with a get-back mentality. That's not how you find Vishnu. And so many things he said, and Dhruva was really determined. Seeing the determination of Dhruva, he gave him very elaborate instructions in the process of self-realization and God-realization. Dhruva thanked him very much, felt deeply indebted to Narada, and he went to a sacred place in Vrindavan, which is what Narada had recommended, Madhuvan. You okay? Okay, I'm teasing her. She needs a mask so he didn't see her yawn. You're okay. I'm teasing you. Don't worry about it. He went to the forest, went to Madhuvan. In 6 months, he did super intense austerities, and Vishnu came before him. There's many things, but Vishnu came before him. Dhruva fell flat before Vishnu. He's just a little boy. He wants to offer prayers. He doesn't even know how to do it properly. Lord Vishnu touches him on the head with his conch shell. His whole body becomes filled with ecstasy, trembling, and so forth. And he offers beautiful prayers. Lord Vishnu then says, you'll get your kingdom that's better than your father's, and better than your father's father, and better your father's father's father. So there. And so what that means, in without all the detail, is he's going to achieve a planet called Dhruva. Dhruva. Dhruva is the spiritual planet that's in this material universe. The pole star or North Star or Dhruva above the planets of the 7 sages. It's the Sapta Rishis, or the Big Dipper in America or the West. It's the Big Dipper. Okay, so that's where we ended. So there's these petals down in the lower left corner. That's Dhruva's austerities. Now we're moving over to chapter 8. And in chapter 8, excuse me, that was 7, and that was 8. I'm sorry, that was chapter 8. Chapter 9. When all living entities in the universe were suffocating due to Dhruva's power, the Lord stops Dhruva. So he was, in his 6 months of austerities, he was doing pranayama. You know what pranayama is? Breath. He suspended his breathing such that he was breathing every 15 days. Whoa. And the flow of air in the universe was being stopped. He had become very powerful. And the demigods, as you see here, the demigods couldn't breathe. And they knew everybody else in the universe also couldn't breathe. So they went to the abode of Lord Vishnu and prayed to him, help. And Vishnu said, no worries. It's just a little boy. He's the son of King Uttanapada, and he's doing some austerities, and I'll go visit him, and he'll stop his austerities, and everything will be okay. So you can go back to your heavenly planets. So what it says here is, after touching Dhruva on the head, he appeared before him, touched Dhruva on his head. Dhruva offered prayers. Dhruva made a request. He just wants the association of pure devotees, like Narada, because Narada is the one instructing him in all of this, so that he can constantly hear the glories of the Lord. So Lord Vishnu sent the demigods back to their planets. Lord Vishnu then appeared before him like this. Dhruva was perturbed when his meditation broke, because in his meditation he was seeing Lord Vishnu in his heart. But then, poof, Lord Vishnu disappeared. As soon as he opened his eyes, he saw the Supreme Personality of Godhead personally present, just as he had been seeing the Lord in his heart. And he paid his obeisances again and again. Now, our acharyas teach us this very nice lesson. Just stay with the bhakti process given by your teachers or the acharyas. And no worry at all. You don't have to go find Krishna. He'll come to you and stay with you. That's a big lesson. Dhruva, in ecstasy, looked upon the Lord as if, or Eva, he were drinking the Lord with his eyes, kissing the Lord, the lotus feet of the Lord with his mouth, and embracing the Lord with his arms. In other words, this was his emotion. He was greeting the Lord with great reverence and respect and love. Another painting of the same. Little boy, here's Lord Vishnu. He came on the back of Garuda. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, being situated in everyone's heart, could understand Dhruva Maharaj's awkward position. Out of his causeless mercy, he touched his conch shell to the forehead of Dhruva Maharaj, who stood before him with folded hands. Nice painting. So there's the Supreme Lord is the bearer of all mercy. If you get the mercy of his representative, you get the mercy of the source of all mercy, the Supreme Lord. So this is kind of magical. As soon as he touched him on the forehead with his conch shell, ecstasy erupted, and he had, by this time, he had given up his desire for a kingdom and replaced from that desire for a kingdom was the association of devotees. There's a verse that Prabhupada would quote consistently again and again, not from the Bhagavatam, it's from another source. Hari Bhakti Sudodaya is the source. Swamin Katartosmi Varam Nayache. Those who hear Prabhupada's recorded lectures, you're very familiar with this phrase, because he used it over and over. Swamin Katartosmi Varam Nayache, which means the whole phrase, "Oh my Lord, because I was seeking an opulent material position, I was performing severe types of penance and austerity. Now I have gotten you, who are very difficult for the great demigods, saintly persons, and kings to attain. I was searching after a piece of glass, but instead I have found the most valuable jewel. Therefore I am satisfied, so satisfied that I do not wish to ask any benediction from you, because the Lord, please take a benediction. Seeing you as my benediction. But that's not from the Bhagavatam. Here's from the Bhagavatam. At that time, Dhruva Maharaj became perfectly aware of Vedic conclusion and understood the absolute truth and his relationship with all living entities, the relationship of Lord Vishnu. So he starts offering prayers. He's fully enlightened, fully in ecstasy, and ready to offer prayers to the Supreme Lord. He speaks of the Lord. The first prayer is he speaks of the Lord as the enlivener of his senses, which is certainly what happened. And he's the shelter of devotees, and for that matter, the shelter of everyone. He expresses great humility. He's first saying words of appreciation, then his humility. In spite of having you, who are like a desire tree, the cause of liberation from birth and death, foolish persons such as me desire benedictions from you for sense gratification, which is available even for those who live in hellish conditions. The sense gratification was, I want a kingdom. He was really stubborn. It was really stubborn, very determined. I want a kingdom. I want a big kingdom. So he's, rightly so actually, but in humility, addressing himself as very foolish. The bliss derived from devotional service cannot be compared to that experienced by Gyanis or yogis. That's Prabhupada's purport. My Lord, the transcendental bliss derived from meditating upon your lotus feet or hearing about your glories from pure devotees is so unlimited that it is far beyond the stage of Brahmananda. Now, Brahmananda is the ananda or the bliss of realizing Brahman. What's Brahman? Brahman is that existence that's beyond material creation. It's the state of oneness, the rays of the Supreme Lord that emanate throughout the whole of the spiritual world. And realizing that is the ananda, the bliss of Brahman. And he's saying, your glories are far, far, far beyond that happiness. Therefore, Dhruva is asking for association of Narada and devotees like Narada who can describe these glories of the Lord, and that is his request. The Lord Vishnu makes a response. So be it. Let all good fortune be given to you. He indicates, after I'm gone, you can return back to your palace. You'll be the ruler of this whole planet Earth, the next successor king behind your father, for 36,000 years. That's a long time. And the explanation is, it has to do with the duration of life during the first of the 4 yugas. How does it work? We'll go backwards. The duration of life common in this age is maximum 100 years. I mean, some people live more, but 100 years. And add it, multiply by a factor of 10, you get the previous yuga. That's the yuga in which Krishna lived. So 1,000 years. The yuga in which Ramachandra lived, multiplied by 10. So 10,000 years. And the original Yuga, Satya Yuga, it's 100,000 years. So you're going to take over the kingdom from your father. You'll rule for 36,000 years, and thereafter you'll go to the planet that you wanted. So he wanted ruling a kingdom better than his father. So you'll rule your father's kingdom for 36,000 years. And his father was Swayambhuva Manu. He wanted a kingdom better than his father's father. And he rules the universe. And his father is Brahma, who is in charge of the whole universe. He wanted a kingdom better than Brahma, his father's father's father. That's Vishnu. So he became the presiding person in Vishnu's planet, the way that Vedic cosmology explains things. Within each universe, there's one spiritual planet that isn't destroyed when this place is destroyed. The abode of Lord Vishnu, of Kshirodakshay Vishnu, the Sweta Dweep. Sweta means white, and Dweepa means island. So the white island, that's where Vishnu resides, in Sweta Dweep. And it's the same, it's non-different, same place that Dhruva went. After his 36,000 years, he went to Dhruva Loka, and there's a lot to say about that. But we won't do it right now because there's a lot to cover tonight. Dhruva Loka is a very interesting place, and Dhruva's ongoing function in the universe is very interesting also. That's in Canto 5. He then says, Vishnu says to Dhruva, in the future, your brother, he had a younger brother named Uttama. Uttama will one day go hunting in the forest, and while absorbed in hunting, he'll be killed. Then his mother, or your stepmother, Suruchi, being maddened upon the death of her son, will go to search him out in the forest, but she will be devoured by a forest fire. So it's not like Dhruva wanted to get back at his stepmother because she insulted him so badly. Initially he did, but now he's on the other side of that. But because she made a big offense, he was you don't speak like the way she spoke to a small boy, and he's a great soul. So she made a big offense. So the teaching involved is what's called a mad elephant offense. Mad elephant offense looks like that on the left. You don't irritate an elephant, you get crushed. So in the picture on the right side, that's offending a devotee. And even the devotee may be smaller than you. Sometimes devotees are smaller than you. Sometimes they're same height. Sometimes they're bigger than you. So they're different sizes, but it doesn't matter the size. You don't offend devotees. You don't offend devotees, because if you offend devotees, you'll get crushed. It's a spiritual law. So Suruchi, the stepmother that viciously insulted Dhruva, she lost her life in this calamity situation. Her son was killed. She got burned in a forest fire. So after giving those exchanges and giving his association and touching Dhruva on the head with his conch shell, Lord Vishnu got on the back of Garuda and returned to the spiritual realm. And Dhruva was very, very deep in regret. I mean, on the one hand, he had just seen God. That's pretty good. But he was also feeling very, very bad because he could have gone with him because he wanted this stupid kingdom. So now he has to not be with him for 36,000 years. And he was also feeling a lot of remorse because his desire he was ashamed and morose to think that although he had gone to Madhuvan, he had given up the kingdom of his father, and he had gotten a spiritual master like Narada Muni, he was still thinking of revenge against his stepmother and wanted to occupy an exalted post within this material world. The graphic on the left-hand side, that's the diamond, and then on the below that is the broken glass. So I was searching for a piece of broken glass. Instead, I got this special jewel. The jewel was his association of Lord Vishnu and pure devotion. So the lesson from Bhagavad Gita, let's see if somebody here knows the verse from Bhagavad Gita. There's a verse in Bhagavad Gita in which Krishna says, there are 4 types of pious people that render devotional service unto me. Pious people. And one of them is, Dhruva is the example of one of them. You know the verse? 4 types of pious people render devotional service unto me. Chaturvidha bhajante mam janasukrita norjana. Yeah. Artha arthati jigyasur gyani cha bharatarshava. Very good. Oh. Okay. So here it is in English. There are 4 types of impious. The next verse is impious people never. But 4 types of pious people come to me. 1, those that are in distress. Help. 2, those that are in search of economic betterment. God, please help me. I need some more money. RT. That's this one. RT. Then those that are jigyasu, they're curious. And then the Gyani, those that are in knowledge, or searching for knowledge. They go to God. So, although he was searching for material prosperity or a kingdom, enjoying, and get the motivation was get back, but it was also get a kingdom. He was his determination and the mercy that he received from Narada carried him to the stage of perfection. So after taking it all in, what just happened, because remember, he's been in the forest for 6 months doing extreme austerities, he starts walking back to the palace. A messenger comes to the king, his father. Do you remember his father's name? Uttanapada. Uttanapada. Ah, very good. Uttanapada. The messenger says, your son's coming back. And Uttanapada couldn't believe it. I mean, he thought his son was dead. Little boy goes to the forest. 5-year-old boy goes to the forest. You don't see him for 6 months. You know, some animal ate him or who knows what. He died of... He didn't have any lunch. Anyway. But the messengers insisted, it's true. So he got up and rushed down the path that he said it was coming. He greeted him, crying, and he sent his whole entourage to receive him. There you see riding on the back of an elephant with his father. And then behind, in that palanquin, that's the 2 queens. Dhruva's mother and his step-brother's mother. The nasty one. The one that insulted him. But the two mothers, were very, very kind with one another. Here it says, the Suniti, that's Dhruva's mother, out of great compassion, and due to being the mother of a great Vaishnav, did not hesitate to take the other wife, Suruchi, and her son, Uttama, on the same palanquin. So they reunited. Dhruva grew up. Dhruva became the king. Dhruva's father followed his young son and went to the forest to practice austerities and devote himself exclusively to Vishnu. And that's the end of chapter 9. Now we're ready for chapter 10. He's been the king. So here's the chapter 10 is over there on the right-hand side. It's depicting Dhruva when he found out that his stepbrother had been killed by the Yakshas. He went to take revenge. He went with his whole army and big battle and the whole thing. That's chapter 10. Dhruva fights the Yakshas to avenge the death of his brother. The Yakshas use magic to create dust storms, lightning, and a rain of blood, pus, and stool. Mountains and weapons fall. Fierce animals come to devour Dhruva, and the ocean comes to frighten him. When the sages see Dhruva overwhelmed by the Yakshas' magic, they remind Dhruva of the power of chanting the Lord's holy name for protection. That's chapter 10. So where the chapter begins is text 1 through 3. It gives a lineage. At the top is Dhruva. Dhruva had 2 wives when he grew up. Brahmi is one, and there was 2 sons, Kalpa and Vatsara. The second queen, Ila, had 1 son, 1 daughter. And then it says, Dhruva's younger brother, Uttama, who was still unmarried, once went on a hunting excursion and was killed by a powerful Yaksha, in the Himalaya mountains. Along with him, his mother Suruchi also followed the path of her son. That is, she died. So who are the Yakshas? The Yakshas are, there's not a whole lot known about them, but they're mystical. They're known for being very powerful fighters, and they're followers of Kuvera, Yakshas. So he kind of gives them protection, and they try to assist him in some way, but they're kind of wild and known for doing wild things, so that and exhibiting mystic powers. So they have a capital called Alakapuri. So, angered like anything that his stepbrother has been killed, although he was told long ago by Vishnu that Uttama would be killed. When it happened, he was in this revenge state. So he got his whole army and went to Alakapuri, ready for a big fight. When he reached there, Dhruva went to the northern direction of the Himalayan range. In a valley, he saw a city full of ghostly persons who were followers of Lord Shiva. I said they were worshippers of Kuvera. They're worshippers of Lord Shiva. My mistake. There's a picture of the scene. So he's ready for battle. And so are they. They're lined up, and he's lined up, and Dhruva's not a little boy anymore. He's a powerful king. And a big, fierce battle ensued between the two armies. And there's details describing this in the Bhagavatam. And Dhruva was winning. And after he was winning, they retreated. And then suddenly they just kind of, poof, they disappeared. They became invisible. He was wondering what's going to happen next. So it's a mystic power. He heard a sound that seemed like it was coming from the ocean. And then a huge dust storm came. Wind, dust in all directions. What you see on the left is a BBT painting of what he saw. Mystical things happening all around him. Clouds, rain, torrents of blood, mucus, pus, stool, urine, and marrow. Human body parts began to fall from the sky. Maces, swords, iron spiked clubs, and other clubs began to fall upon him and his whole army. Snakes breathing thunderbolts and vomiting fire, along with herds of mad elephants, lions, and tigers. Oceans became fierce, as if it was the end of a kalpa. So it was just mystical display. It wasn't real things. And he became bewildered. And here's some other description of what he saw. Mystical mountains, animals, oceans, thunder and lightning, different visions and apparitions. Whew. He was bewildered. Fortunately for him, there were some sages that had accompanied him from his capital, and they were observing everything. So they weren't bewildered. They spoke and explained that by hearing or chanting the Lord's name, people easily cross unsurpassable death. The sages thought that if one can cross death by hearing about the Lord, then Dhruva could easily overcome the Yaksha's magic spell. Thus they made him remember the Narayana weapon. He had been given a powerful weapon, and it's so named after the Supreme Lord. Here's a painting displaying what Dhruva did. He gets ready with his bow drawn and the Narayana Astra fastened to the bow, and all of a sudden all that apparition disappeared. It's the personal weapon of Lord Vishnu in his Narayana form that had been given to Dhruva in case of emergency, and this was an emergency. Mam eva ye prapadyante mayam etam taranti te. You know the verse? You know the verse? Try. Then this line. There you go. Mayam etam tarantite. Those prapadyante means surrender. Those who prapadyante, those surrender unto me, they can easily, so this material energy is very difficult to cross over. Daivi hi esha gunamayi mama maya, my illusory energy, duratyaya, very difficult. Duratyaya, very difficult, a big struggle. But one who surrenders unto me, prapadyante, can easily cross beyond it. So this is what is stated in this. We're going in from the 10th chapter into the 11th chapter now. Without Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, no one is able to overcome the action of the illusory energy. So it was an illusory display. But he just drew this Narayana Astra and poof, the whole thing disappeared. So what's the application for us? Because we don't have any Narayana Astra. What are we supposed to do? And the answer is given by Prabhupada. The Sangopangastra. Astra means weapon. And Sangha and Upanga, this is a verse from the Bhagavatam that's speaking about Lord Chaitanya came with his associates, Sangha, and his expansions, Upangas. In this age, the Narayana Astra, or the weapon to drive away Maya, is the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. That's Prabhupada's explanation. So, moving into chapter 11, what happens up on the upper right, up there, that lotus petal, Swayambhuva Manu comes. Now, who's Swayambhuva Manu in relation to Dhruva? Dhruva's father is Uttanapada. Dhruva's father is Uttanapada. And Uttanapada's father, Manu, right? Because Uttanapada is his son, so his father is Swayambhuva Manu. So Swayambhuva Manu came, because what Dhruva was doing, he was slaughtering everybody left and right. It was like out of control. Dhruva mercilessly slaughters the yakshas with the help of his Narayana arrow. Swayambhuva Manu, out of compassion for the yakshas, requests Dhruva to stop irreligiously killing the sinless, offenseless yakshas. That is, one yaksha killed his stepbrother and he's slaughtering all the yakshas. That's not right. So then he gives, this is really good lesson to bear in mind. Supposing you or somebody you know is kind of getting carried away with anger. Maybe good fortune will come into your life and it won't happen. You or somebody you know won't happen. But if it does happen, you can think of the following instructions. This is Swayambhuva Manu, and he is one of the principal authorities in the whole of the Vedic culture. According to the Bhagavatam, he's one of the 12 Mahajans, or great authorities. So here's his advice. Excessive anger, now sometimes anger has its place, but excessive anger, too much. Ati Roshena. It's sinful. Papamana. Here's the verse. Manu, Swayambhuva Manu speaking. There's the Sanskrit. Tamo Dvaram. Tamo, Dvaram means gate, and Tama means darkness or path to hell. My dear son, his grandson, please stop. It's not good to become unnecessarily angry or excessively angry. It is the path to hellish life. Tamo Dvaram. Tamo Dvarena. Now you are going beyond the limit by killing yakshas who are actually not offenders. One, not everybody. So you've entered into some dangerous territory here, so you please stop. And he gives another argument. It's not befitting our dynasty. So Manu is the lawgiver of mankind, and he's one of the 12 great authorities. Here's going to show up quickly, but Emperor Swayambhuva Manu and Shatarupa, that's the two in this picture. Below them is the other authorities. Now, those of you not familiar with the Bhagavatam may not know, but in the 6th canto of the Bhagavatam, there's a description by Yamaraj, the principal authorities of all time that understand Dharma. They're called Mahajans. Mahajana, great personalities, great authorities. And the first of them, we'll go through the list. Swayambhu, that's Lord Brahma in the upper left. Narada, Lord Shiva, Lord Kapila, Prahlad. Below them is Yamaraj. The lower right corner is Bali Maharaj. Going across now the other towards the left side, that's Shukadev Goswami. Everybody knows what the next picture is. That's Grandfather Bhishma Dev. And who's that in the lower left corner? Huh? Janaka. Janaka? Sita's father, king of Mithila. And then, of course, the four Kumaras. So those are the, altogether, there's 5 across the top, 4 across the bottom, that's 9, 10, 11, and Manu. Those are the 12 great authorities. So those that are, you're just 2 generations, you're my grandson. And it's not befitting our dynasty, this Atiroshena, excessive. So please stop. And virtuous people, aside from people in our dynasty, they would condemn what you're doing. So please stop. Those are 3 specific reasons. This is a law of Manu, law of mankind. Killing many for one person's fault out of affection for your brother Uttam, it's inappropriate punishment. Another is you're identifying with the body, that because he's your brother. And animals do the same thing. Elevated humans don't do the same thing. It's not the path of sadhus. So animals can fight till the other one is finished. But you're not like that. So please stop. Sadhunam. Those who are sadhus don't behave like this. So then there's some explanation, a little bit. Who's a sadhu? How do you know who a sadhu is? You can say in general it's a saintly person. But those who are the saintly persons? And the answer is those who have taken shelter of the Supreme Pure. They become pure and sadhu-like. That what makes them saintly is they Rishikesha Anuvartinam. They're following the path of Rishikesh. What's the meaning? Rishikesh. Isha means controller. Right? Senses. Yeah. Rishikesh. Rishi, one of the definitions of bhakti is Rishikena, Rishikesha, Sevanam. When the senses are engaged in the seva of the master of the senses. That's bhakti. With feelings of offering some service and love. So Rishikesha, Anu, Vartinam. Anu means to follow. Vartinam means the path. You follow the path of serving the master of the senses. That's a sadhu. Sadhu doesn't mean somebody with a long beard wearing saffron cloth. Sadhu means anyone. Like Prahlad when he was little, he was a sadhu. Or Dhruva when he was little, he was a sadhu, and his mother offended him. She got a big reaction. So it's not that how old you are, your size, or anything, your gender, or anything. It's one who follows the path of serving the Supreme Lord. Arajapa Radyam. Vishnu tad paramam padam. They reminded him, don't forget, you're already destined to go to Vaikuntha. So, this isn't appropriate for someone who's headed for Vaikuntha. I mean, Vishnu said it. I mean, everybody knew it. So here's his grandfather. He knew it. Vishnu's tad paramam padam. That's where you're headed. And one more. You have worshipped the Lord as Sarva Bhutatma Bhavena. You've already been through this. You are engaged in meditation upon the Lord who is within the heart of every living being. And these yakshas have the Lord in their heart too. So please stop. This unnecessary killing is not befitting you. It's pretty strong. But he's Swayambhuva Manu. He's one of the great authorities. Your life is meant for exemplary behavior. I am therefore surprised. Why have you undertaken such abominable task? Stop killing for Krishna's pleasure. So how did Dhruva respond? It's really hard to get over anger when you're angry. I can't give up my ego. He's not disagreeing with his instruction, but he's indicating it's very difficult for me. So here comes round 2. Swayambhuva Manu continues. Remember what you have received. What is it that you received? You received the mercy of Lord Vishnu. Please don't forget, you gave yourself to him, and he's given himself to you. Please turn your attention again to the Supreme Lord, who you've given yourself to. It's just a gentle reminder. This consciousness of friend and enemy is not present in a person who is self-realized, so please relinquish it. Give up this friend and enemy idea. It's the very same message that we heard in Prahlad's teachings to his teacher and to his father. Teachers is a big obstacle for worldly people to let go of the friend and enemy idea. But it's an instruction he's being given. I just saw somebody has, with their phone number, they have a picture. The picture says, many relations can be saved by not understanding someone is simply wrong, but they're different. Anyway, sometimes people are wrong. And you need to have a power of discriminating, but, the friend and enemies program is very detrimental. So he's giving an instruction. By my instructions, give up your anger. Anger is the foremost enemy for self-realization. It's detrimental for those who desire liberation. It makes one a source of dread for all others. He's giving instructions. There you see the verses from chapter 11. And when somebody's gripped in anger, it's hard. They have, anger management and count to 10 and, things like that. Let go of anger. Here's a little saying on the right-hand side I like. Sometimes holding on does more damage than letting go. And finally, Dhruva gets it. And he says, in conclusion, these are followers, they're worshippers of Lord Shiva, but they're followers of Kuvera. And you need to make amends with Kuvera. So Dhruva thanks Manu and even worships Manu. Dhruva has stopped his killing. Manu and the sages depart. They're almost done. There's just one chapter remaining. The part that's not here is Kuvera gives his some benedictions. Yeah. So he's now back in, this is chapter 12. He's ruling the kingdom, 36,000 years. The stage of his life comes where he's ready to turn his kingdom over to his eldest son. He does that. He goes to Badrik Ashram. Anyone here been to Badrik Ashram? Badrinath? I want to go. But now's not a good time to go. India in general is not a good place to go right now. But I want to go. One day we'll take a group of devotees and go to Badri. So he went to Badri. And he performed Ashtanga Yoga. He did the same thing he did when he was a little boy. And at the end of his life, very interesting thing happened. The agents of Vaikuntha descended, invited him to get on a Vaikuntha airplane, Vaikuntha Vimana. So that's what this chapter is. And he goes, and his mother comes too. After ruling, Dhruva went to Badrikashram. He engaged in worship. The details are presented. Dhruva saw the foremost, look at this airplane, descend from the sky, illuminating all directions like the rising moon. Interestingly, Dhruva did all of his daily duties. He did his bath and he chanted his mantras and he was getting ready to go to the spiritual world. And he circumambulated Vimana several times. The agents of Lord Vishnu, they said, come on, let's go. And so he starts heading for the Vimana. And what happened, very interesting, death personified approached him. And he just placed his foot on the head of death personified and got on the plane. And it was a really big plane, he says, as big as a house. But as he's getting on the plane, he said, wait a minute. I can't leave without my mother. And they said, no worries. See that other plane over there? That's your mother's plane. She's going too. Because she was a very great soul. Very great soul. As the plane was about to ascend, Dhruva remembered Suniti, who was his Pata Pradarshika Guru, or Vartama Pradarshika Guru. And there's the other plane. So off he goes. In the background you see the demigods are showering flowers and having music and all of that. So here's the whole, some simple messages to take from the whole Dhruva story. The first is, are you really tired? What should we do? You want to go take rest? You're okay? Okay. I'll try to hurry up and finish. the initial part was Dhruva was angry at his stepmother and angry at his father, and so he was in this reacting and get back mood, and he got over it by the association of his mother and Narada, and his submission to both. When he heard from Narada, Narada was giving him advice that he felt was just not within his capacity to fulfill. So he was requesting Narada for, please help me find Vishnu. He was very determined and disciplined. He received the Lord because of Narada's mercy and the mercy of the Lord. He ended up with genuine humility. That's not where he started, but that's where he ended up. And he regretted this materialistic way that he was thinking. And for his adult life, he was carrying out his duties nicely. And in the end was his gratitude to his mother. And Narada, of course, too. So here's, we're almost done. This is the journey of Dhruva from a little boy to doing his austerities, becoming a young prince, becoming a king, and going back to Godhead. So these are the stages. Young prince up to an unalloyed devotee. This is the classic of the Dhruva story is going from sarvakama to nishkama. Big time material desire to having no material desire. Big time material desire to no material desire. And there's elements that helped him get there. He moved from the position that it's all about me to it's all about Krishna. And we're done. And you made it. So let's see. Many of us, many devotees, let's say this, many devotees have heard this story, of course, different portions of it, many, many, many times. It's a very well-known narration. It's not only in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it's in the other Puranas. The story of Dhruva is celebrated. The story of Prahlad is celebrated. The many Puranas have that description, different parts of it in different iterations. But they're very important persons because there's very important lessons to be learned. It's not just, he got his kingdom, but the many nice lessons, the many nice instructions in the course. But how to go from, because sometimes, more than sometimes, often, devotees feel, gosh, the goal of spiritual life is really high, and I'm way down here, and how's it possible for me? But it's not like, wherever somebody's at, it's not the same as Dhruva. Dhruva wanted a kingdom better than his father, better than his father's father, and better than his father's father's father, and he really meant it. When just like a little boy that was stomping his foot. It was a very intense experience of material desire. With not even with a bad motive behind it. Get back. So dark. But good association and determination to follow the teachings given. He became free from that material desire. Now, in the story, Lord Vishnu said, I understand you don't have that desire anymore, but you did. And so that desire will be fulfilled. We shouldn't be calculating, think, well, let me become a devotee, then I'll get my desires fulfilled. But, that if what we're desiring is important, and connecting to Lord Vishnu or Lord Krishna is important, and leaving behind this, the material side, it's all about me, to come to the spiritual position. There's lessons. So let's see if there's some discussion on the whole Dhruva Maharaj story.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, Dandavat Pranam. Maharaj, this is related to the Mahajans you mentioned, Lord Brahma, and all the way to the last planet, Yamaraj. Although they're self-realized, yet they engage in a day-to-day in an activity that is not completely favorable to Krishna consciousness, or living entities are not abiding in the Krishna consciousness duties, or they are doing karma vikarma and following. Yet they are motivated to continue their duty.
Who's they?
The Mahajans are self-realized souls.
Okay.
And including Mahamaya also.
Including what?
Mahamaya, Yogamaya, Mahamaya.
What about?
She's doing.
I don't follow what you're saying.
They're all doing the duty.
Yeah.
But the duty is not completely related to Krishna consciousness completely.
Why do you say that? On what basis are you saying that?
For example, the living entities.
You're speaking Mahajans now.
Yes.
And their activities are not centered on Krishna.
I should rephrase that. Their extended. To give an example would be the living entities who are suffering, getting punished at the hellish planets.
I'm really confused. Unconfuse me, please.
Maybe.
Do you follow what he's asking?
Indirect, it's not direct Krishna conscious activity.
Well, what's indirect about their Krishna conscious? The Mahajans are not doing indirect Krishna conscious activities. It's a misunderstanding. So what's an example of indirect or worldly activities that's not Krishna conscious on the part of a Mahajan? She disagrees too.
So,
Yeah.
you're not punishing the.
His duty. He's not delighted in doing it. It's a duty.
Right. So I think Prabhu is saying that that is not a Krishna consciousness.
Well, it's mistaken. He is fully Krishna conscious.
So he's
Yamaraj is fully Krishna conscious.
so he's punishing them because as a duty to Krishna.
It's not a lovely duty, but it's a duty. I wouldn't want that one, but
Right.
he's qualified in purity and in service. So it's of the world, and yes, it's not lovely, but it's let's just take Arjuna and killing people. From a moral point of view, I don't want to do this. From the Krishna point of view, I want you to do this. So under Krishna's direction, it's not not dirty. It's relieving those kings of all their sinful reactions and delivering them to the spiritual world. And you be my instrument for that. Now, from a worldly sense of morality, well, that's material. Arjuna gives the reasons. So one could say, well, what Yamaraj is doing is not nice. You shouldn't do it because it's not nice. It's under Krishna's order, what he's doing. He doesn't like it. He gets a chance to get a break from that when he gets cursed by a sage. So it becomes Vidura. Is that what you mean? Okay, so you figure it out. Something else? You have something? You got the microphone.
I have a question. Many times I am in this very excited, enthusiastic mood in Krishna consciousness.
Fantastic. And then sometimes you're not.
And many times I'm not. I'm completely below zero. So, but I'm never in the middle. So I'm not able to find that balance.
You're never in the middle? Come on.
I'm either too excited or I'm absolutely not excited.
You're really a weirdo. She's looking at you like, Mom, he's got your number.
It's
It's an exaggeration to say you're never in the middle.
maybe I'm not seeing myself that way.
But it's just not. It's not life. You're not either a 10 or a 0. It's not. Life is. It moves.
It's well, my struggle is when I'm at that very low point. It feels very heavy,
Okay, that's a different question.
right? How do I bring myself back up to that energy or enthusiasm again?
Well, there's many things. I mean, it's a standard answer I like to give is if you're cold, what do? Stand near a fire, you get warm.
Association.
So it's, yes, sadhu sangha. And bhajana kriya. You pull out your bead bag and pull out your Bhagavatam and pull out your piano here and start singing songs to Krishna. You reach your hands up and you pray. You call out to Krishna. It's not balance. It's just restoring your, because the state of enthusiasm is natural for the soul, and when that enthusiasm becomes cold, you go to where there's warmth, and you just be patient. Utsahan nishchaya dairayat. You know the verse?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what you do. How we doing? Okay.
Is it okay if I? Okay. Hare Krishna Maharaj. So my question is about so when Dhruva was younger, when he was insulted by his stepmother,
Yeah.
was from what I understand, Dhruva became a devotee after following his mother's instructions into going into the forest.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
However, before that, he was into that mentality that like, oh, it's all about me. Right? Or
Yes.
yes? So
The seed of bhakti was given by his mother.
right. So my question is, so I remember you talking about the mad elephant offense.
Yeah.
And so with that offense, it's like when you insult a devotee or when you're angry upon them, it will not like it won't bode well for you. So my question is, when the stepmother insulted Dhruva when he wasn't a devotee yet.
I think I got your question. Since he didn't have the seed of bhakti yet, there wasn't a Vaishnava aparad. He's just a little kid.
Yeah, that's my question.
So it's not like big time Vaishnava aparad because he's just a little kid. I mean, you don't go bashing little kids, but it's not Vaishnava aparad because he's not a Vaishnav yet. That's your question.
I guess my question's like, how come like after Dhruva became a great devotee of the Lord, how come that's when
She got the
Suruchi
reaction.
and the son became punished that way?
Well, it takes time for offense to fructify. It doesn't have to happen, pronto. There's instant karma and there's delayed karma. There's instant reaction to offense and there's delayed reaction to offense. No, the question you're asking is something I've also thought about. And one of the, like put it this way, who was Dhruva before he was Dhruva? What was he in his previous life, and what was special about him that not only there was big time aparad for offending him, but he moved so quickly. That's not normal. He got a pure devotee mother and a pure devotee Narada as association, and he was in the fast lane. So he's not just a little kid. He's a special soul of some kind.
Right. So, oh my bad. Were you about to?
No, the question you're asking is something I also pondered, and I don't have the answer to who Dhruva was in his previous life, other than understanding he's not an ordinary person. It's a little bit like, it's not the same, but it's a little bit like when Prahlad was still in the womb of his mother, Kayadu.
Right.
And Narada came along and said, no, he's not Hiranyakashipu Jr. He's a great soul. He's a great soul. So Dhruva was a great soul. In what way he was a great soul, I don't have the answer to that, but the evidence is he's a great soul. The three explanations. How can you say that? Look at his mother, and look what happened when he heard from his mother, and look what happened when he heard from Narada, and look what he did with Narada's instructions. He's not an ordinary fellow. He's some kind of a special soul. So that's the aparad.
Got it. Just one more thing. So would you say that the level of punishment that Suruchi and the son got, do you think that some of it was affected by how much of a great soul Dhruva was?
How much what?
Say if Dhruva was not, like, if he still kept on going with the mentality that it's all about me, without like going to the forest, without like visiting Narada,
Yeah.
would the same punishment still apply to Suruchi and the son? Or did that definitely change when Dhruva became a devotee?
I mean, the question you're asking is, what's the pan scale of justice that the Supreme Lord has? Could you describe that pan scale of justice? And there's so many contributing factors. It's not just something isolated. In other words, Dhruva was somebody in his previous life, and so was she. And who knows how many thises and that's she had done
Oh, right. That's true.
before she did what she did with Dhruva. So it's not, karma is very complex, and offenses, what's coming to somebody is not so, cut and dry. If your question is, is there a greater reaction to offending a person who's a more elevated Vaishnav than a lesser elevated Vaishnava? Yes. But one shouldn't think, well, they're a lesser elevated Vaishnav, so I can step on them, it's okay.
Gotcha.
That's another offense.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Maharaj.
How are we doing? Anything over here? We have some online questions.
This is from Radha Kunja Bihari Prabhu. Both Dhruva Maharaj and Arjuna are Vaishnavas of the highest order and loving devotees of the Lord. How come Dhruva is driven by revenge, unlike Arjuna, who always listened to his wise counsel? As a sadhaka, who should be the role model, Arjuna or Dhruva Maharaj?
Well, it depends on what level of Krishna consciousness you're in. I mean, Arjuna's responding to Krishna's correcting him is good. And the example of Dhruva is to go from, big time material desire to having no material desire. And then having a relapse. So there's nice lessons. If you need a role model like that, that's Dhruva. But, it depends. As far as their exaltedness, one could say it's Arjuna. Arjuna is an eternal associate of Krishna. And look what happened to Dhruva. He had to go back and rule a kingdom for 36,000 years. And then, what pastimes with Krishna is he doing? He's in Dhruva Loka doing what he does in Dhruva Loka. So, you can look at it that way. Arjuna is very, very, very special. He's an eternal associate of Krishna. Wherever Krishna appears, Arjuna's there. That's pretty special. And how he responds, pretty special. I mean, he had a lapse, but it didn't take too long, and he's ready to go. Krishna vachanam tava, whatever you say.
This is from Ramaraghava Prabhu. Such a powerful and beautiful presentation. Thank you very much, Maharaj. My question is, how to understand that a devotee of the stature of Dhruva, after receiving what he called a diamond in the form of association of Supreme Lord, could be inflicted with a feeling of revenge even after the Lord himself enlightened him about the fate of Uttama.
Apichet sudaracharo bhajate mamananyabhak. That's how. Sadhureva samantavya. He knows the verse. 930 Bhagavad Gita. That's how.
This is from Snehavalli Mataji. I have two questions. They may be a repeat questions. First, we discussed in Sudama Brahmana pastime that Krishna doesn't impose on devotees. Dhruva prayed that he is not interested in broken piece of glass. Then also Krishna gave him a kingdom to rule. Could you please elaborate on this?
Sure. He had reached the stage where he was no longer attracted. Such a person who is no longer attracted is eligible to receive abundant opulence and not be attracted. From our discussion, yet she's referring to the Sudama story. Just like the example that we spent like 15 minutes discussing, persons like Prahlad, and in this case Dhruva, when they're indifferent, they're not interested in material enjoyment, they can be awarded all kinds of, opulence, and they won't succumb to sense gratification and material life. And he didn't. Next.
The second question. When Swayambhuva Manu tells Dhruva to stop fighting,
Uh-huh.
Dhruva's response was that he cannot let go of his ego. How can a pure devotee exhibit ego?
Well, if two things, there's two possibilities, at least. One is under the influence of Krishna's own arrangements, his pure devotee can be like that or behave like that or speak like that. Like the classic examples like Arjuna, he was thinking in terms of the body. This isn't in my interest because it's in terms of the body, in terms of the bodily conception. That's false ego. So Arjuna's not he's a pure devotee. So how can that happen? By the Lord's, his own potency, his Yogamaya potency, Arjuna can be covered and Dhruva can be covered. And a second option goes back to Raghava's question. And so here's a detail. Prabhupada this is the Apichet Sudaracharo verse. Supposing you live by the sea, and with the movements of the moon, the tide comes in, the tide goes out, the tide comes in, the tide goes out, the tide comes in. It doesn't cross a certain line because that's the arrangement. But then the tsunami happens, and it not just crosses the line, but everything gets devastated. And then when the water subsides after the tsunami, the tide comes in, the tide goes out. So there can be an exceptional case where even a great devotee becomes overwhelmed by circumstance. It's not normal. It's not regular. It's just, a highly irregular circumstance arises, like a tsunami. So that's a second possibility.
Amara Mataji's question. What are some activities that indicate ignoring Krishna?
What are some
Activities that indicate ignoring Krishna.
ignoring Krishna? Activities that indicate ignoring Krishna. Well, just take your pick of anything that's in material life and it's ignoring Krishna. Those are examples of activities that are ignoring Krishna. I mean, one of the favorite examples that Prabhupada referred to is educators that are pretending to be educators when they really don't know, or scientists that are pretending to know and they don't know, or leaders that are pretending to lead and they don't know. And that's a lot of people in the world that don't know, but they're taking a leadership position, but they don't know. Not te vidu svartagatimi Vishnu. They don't know their sva-artha, their real self-interest. And then they're something. Becoming a leader, becoming a teacher, becoming a professor, or becoming a scientist, or becoming a parent, or becoming but they really don't know what their self-interest is and what their duties are. They're living life in ignorance.
The second question from Amara Mataji. Kuvera is the demigod who are devotees of the Lord. How to understand his followers performing such ghastly activities?
He's merciful. And he's trying to, lift them. And they're not there yet.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I had the same question what Priyanka asked. So I was thinking about the offenses that Uttanapada and Suruchi committed to Suniti as well. They did for a long time, not just one time to Dhruva
Yes.
Maharaj. So I was
Yes.
thinking that is that right?
Yes, that's
Understanding?
right.
And one lesson when you explained, I was thinking because we never know who is that pure devotee at that time, if it's a small or big. So it happened. Dhruva's previous life, or what happened that immediately becoming such a great personality after meeting Narada Muni. So committing offenses is dangerous thing. So irrespective of we know that person is a pure devotee or not.
You want to know what are the symptoms of, for a small child, whether they're a great devotee or not?
Yes.
You're just commenting. We
Yeah.
never know, so we have to be careful.
I was commenting, maybe if you can explain.
Be careful. Like your two boys, they're born in a devotee family, so they're not ordinary. Besides, how they pick up on things, just the very fact that they're born in a devotee family, they're special. It's not ordinary, etc. Okay, he's got a
One-
question over here.
Can I ask one more question?
Can I take the microphone away from you? We'll come back.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for a wonderful class. My question is it because of Dhruva Maharaja's desire that the mother of Dhruva Maharaj, Suniti, went back to Godhead, or is it because of the devotional service of Suniti, Mother Suniti, she went
It's
to back?
both.
It's both.
It's both. But she was already elevated, extremely elevated. So perhaps on her own merit, but just to add some extra, Dhruva's qualification in addition to her own merit. And it doesn't give an explanation of why she went back at the same time that he did, because it's not like the way that somebody normally goes back to the spiritual world is when they leave their body, they go, the soul goes. With Dhruva's case, he didn't leave his body. It says specifically his body became blazing like a sun. It became totally spiritualized, self-same body. It doesn't give an explanation about what was the situation with his mother. If he ruled for 36,000 years, she was probably an old lady. But we don't have that information. But we know she's exalted.
And is there any other explanation about the father of Dhruva Maharaj?
Uttanapada? Yeah, he followed his son. But what his attainment was is not said. But, he left the palace and followed the path of his son. Engaged in austerities and meditation and the whole thing, according to the practices for that age, Satya Yuga.
Thank you, Maharaj.
You have something? Okay. Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
I'm not really sure as much. I haven't learned this much, obviously. This is one of my first times sitting in this kind of setting.
Uh-huh.
But listening to your story,
Nice story, huh?
Indeed.
If you're not tired, then you can hear the whole thing.
So, like you said earlier, I just wanted to know. You said how Dhruva Maharaj's mother, Suniti, planted the seed of bhakti in him.
Yes.
So during that like age, since she was already like fairly like elevated, in this day and age, where would you find that kind of like method or process? Like where would you get it from?
Where do you
would
get the seed from?
Hmm.
Well, you have to get it from somebody who has it. And at this age, there's not too many people that have it. So sometimes it's just good fortune, and it just kind of like falls out from the sky or something. It's called causeless mercy. There's not a cause, and so. But if you're looking for it, the rule is that Krishna will recognize that you're looking for it, and he'll make some arrangement. Now, how he'll make that arrangement, that's up to him. But when you're looking for it, he'll make some arrangement. Now, there must be. It's a big country. And there's a lot of people that haven't gotten that opportunity. And therefore, there are those that have that seed that are, you can say, duty-bound or charged with the duty to give that to others. It's one of what your question is one of the inspirations that, when, in a younger age, traveling around the country in a van, with a van full of books, and 3 other brahmacharis, we would just travel and distribute books all over the country. And there's lots of people, lots of young men, even today, are doing that. But, now with internet and other things. So, people can be contacted in so many ways, but it takes one who has the seed to give the seed. And the way that it happens sometimes is like, wow, really? Some tells their story, how did you get your book, or how did you find the devotees or something? And there's pretty amazing stories. Very amazing stories. I heard this one story recently. Somebody in Europe, goes something like this. They had an addiction problem, and it got worse, and it got worse, and it got worse. They were living alone, and they were just overwhelmed with their addiction. On their bookshelf was a copy of Sri Upanishad, which they had never read. Someone somehow got it. And the Yamadutas came to take him away. And he just happened to look up, and on the bookshelf, the cover of the Sri Upanishad showed the hoods of Anantashesh were glowing light. And his attention got fixed on the glowing of the hoods on Anantashesh. And the Yamadutas said, okay, well, your bhakti life has begun, but you better straighten yourself out. Oh, we'll be back. So somehow he got a book. I don't know the story of how the book got there on his bookshelf. But somebody extended themselves, and he wasn't paying attention to it. It was just in his shelf. But then this thing happened. And there's a million other stories like that. So when there's a desire to make that connection, then there's some reciprocation from Krishna's side to make that connection. And there's need for people that have the seed of bhakti to be very kind and go out of their way to see that other people get the opportunity. And then once the seed is there, is to nourish the seed or fan the spark or encourage. Okay.
Thank you.
Anything? Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
You're on.
Yeah, okay. As he said, this is our first time in this kind of setting.
Uh-huh. Nice story, right?
No, this is really life-changing. We are
Okay.
really happy being here.
Good.
My question would be that we come across so many kinds of people who still are in search of that happiness or haven't reached that kind of elevation. They're not elevated yet.
Yeah.
So
Lots of people.
yes, so that's why we see so many unrest in the world and all.
Yeah.
But everybody knows in their heart, because everybody knows that Krishna is there, God is there in any form. Why does it take people so long to realize that?
They're really attached.
Like, we know that people do pray in whichever form, but still it's like superficial mostly.
They're attached. I mean, it's so. Yeah, they're attached. Here's a nice story. Somebody asked, you know who Bhaktisiddhanta is?
Yeah.
Prabhupada's spiritual
Yes.
master. How is it? Some people make very quick progress. Some people seem to be doing something the same things, but they don't make very much progress. Why is that? Answer. He told the story. There's a story, and it's called The Wedding Party. And in Bengal, because that's where the story was being narrated, it's a custom that the young man, the bridegroom, goes to the home of the young bride the evening before. In the morning they have their ceremony, and then they go back to the bride's home, the groom's home. So the family got in a boat, and oh, happy day, tomorrow was the wedding, and blah blah blah, and they took rest in the boat, and the boatman was rowing all night, and they woke up, today's the day, and they look around, they're in the same place. Boatman, what did you do? You know, I didn't sleep. I was rowing all night long. How come we're in the same place? They left the anchor down. Which is a little story to say, when you're attached, you can do stuff that looks like, good stuff. It's like, get you to God stuff. But if you maintain strong attachments to the temporary, you're not going to make much progress.
Thank you so much.
Okay, we're coming back around again.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. My question is about Dhruva Maharaj while he performing the 6 months austerities. So he was going through a lot of purification. So he was in connection with the Lord Vishnu within his heart. So but while he was going through that purification, but suddenly when Vishnu appears in front of him, so he loses that material desire. I mean, that's what.
It was not sudden. It was gradual.
Okay.
It's not an on-off switch. It's a dimmer switch. Gradual. Losing the material, increasing the spiritual.
I was trying to ask what is the difference between seeing the Vishnu within his heart and outside. So because I saw,
There's no difference. That's what he realized. Later, not immediately. Anything else online? Okay, we're done. You have something.
I was thinking, what is offense?
What is offense?
Is it something one does not out of love for Krishna will become an offense?
No. Offense is that which is spiritual, treating as if it's material. So there's a difference between, say, ordinary worldly activity and offense. Offense is something, something that's fully spiritual. It's like a Vaishnav, or a deity, or the holy name, or scripture, or prasadam, or something that's all spiritual, and treating it as in an ordinary way, regarding it and mistreating it. Okay, we're done. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Prabhupada ki jai.